Chapter 3. Tone, Swang, and Ha had known each other for more than 3 months. During that time, Tone had exchanged fewer than 10 sentences with Swang beyond polite greetings. Though she was still a high school student, Swang carried herself with a quiet and solemn demeanor, as if she were a young woman closed off from the world. Whenever they waited for the car outside the library, Swang would bury herself in a book, usually a French novel she had bought or borrowed. If the car arrived while Tone was still helping Ha with an exercise, Swang would simply board and wait in the car, her calm indifference setting an unspoken boundary. Her behavior seemed to convey to Tone that the distance between them was immovable. Strangely, this made him feel more at ease, allowing him to maintain his friendship with the two girls without worrying about overstepping. Tone now regarded Swang as a beautiful image, something to admire from afar, and Ha as a little sister he enjoyed guiding. In this unfamiliar city, their company was a welcome distraction from the loneliness of his routine. His days were consumed by studying, tutoring to support himself, and little else. Unlike many of his peers, Tone rarely went to the cinema or coffee shops. Meeting Swang and Ha at the library had become a bright spot in his otherwise monotonous life. One day, Ha suddenly turned to him and asked, "Are you free this Saturday?" "What's going on?" Tone asked, curious. "My mom said if you're not busy, she'd like to invite you over to our house," Ha replied, her face bright with innocent anticipation, as though already expecting his agreement. The words hit Tone like a thunderclap. He froze, stunned, as if he had just received a heavy shock. How was he supposed to respond? He glanced at the two girls, recalling the driver who arrived each day to pick them up, the polished demeanor they carried, and their impeccable manners. Though Tone had never asked about their family, he had long suspected what kind of household they came from. This wasn't just a wealthy family. It was clear they belonged to the upper echelons of Saigon's elite, far beyond the reach of someone like him. And what about him? A poor student struggling to stay afloat, living below even the average poverty level of students in Saigon. Meeting them at the library already felt like stepping into a fairy tale. How could he possibly show his face at their home? His clothes were plain, 2 well-worn sets he rotated for school and tutoring, and his dilapidated bicycle hardly suited a visit to a house he could only imagine as a grand mansion, perhaps even a castle. While Tone wrestled with his thoughts, Ha's voice jolted him back to reality. "Hey, why aren't you saying anything? I asked if you're free this Saturday. My mom's waiting for an answer." "Oh, I have a class until 5 on Saturday," Tone stammered, trying to buy time. "But after that, I don't have anything planned." "Great. Then come over at 6 o'clock, okay?" Ha concluded cheerfully, not even waiting for his agreement. Tone blinked, still overwhelmed. He hesitated before saying, 6 o'clock. But I don't even know where your house is." Ha laughed and rattled off the address. "Number 246, Nguyen Du Street. Write it down so you don't forget." Before he could respond, Ha hugged her books and dashed out the door as their car pulled up. Swang paused for a brief moment, turned back, and gave him a soft smile with a small nod before following her sister. Left standing alone in the library, Tone stared at the space where they had just been, his mind spinning. The thought of stepping into their world felt impossible, yet unavoidable. For the past 3 months, Tone had avoided asking about the two sisters' family or home, knowing full well that even if he learned the details, he would never dare visit. But today, I had practically forced him into accepting an invitation to their house, though he hadn't formally agreed. What could they have told their mother about him to warrant such an invitation? And what would he even do when he got there? Should he wear his usual plain clothes? If not, where would he find something better? Should he show up on his worn-out bicycle to what he imagined would be an extravagant villa? These questions swirled in his mind, leaving him anxious and unsure. His connection to Swang and Ha was nothing more than a casual acquaintance. They weren't friends, much less anything closer. Why had they invited him to their home? What was the purpose of the visit? Tone found himself spiraling into self-doubt. How should he act or behave when meeting people from a social class so different from his own? Even with Swang, a girl he quietly admired, He could barely manage polite conversation. How would he handle speaking with her family? Ha was different. She was just a playful, straightforward girl, not unlike his students, making it easy to interact with her. But with adults, he had no idea how to navigate that. Since moving to Saigon for university, Tone had never visited a girl's house alone, not even his classmates. The closest he had come was attending a birthday party at Bitch Thai's home. But even then, it was a casual gathering with many classmates present, and her family wasn't home. The lively atmosphere had made it easy for everyone to relax. Any other visits to friend houses had been with his male peers, making the idea of going to Swang and Ha's home alone even more nerve-wracking. After much thought, Tone decided he would seek advice from Bitch Thai at school the next day. Perhaps she could offer some helpful tips to ease his worries. That thought provided a small sense of relief. He reasoned that if he did decide to go, the best approach would be to remain himself, natural and sincere. After all, he knew there was no future between him and a girl like Tuet Swang. Why should he care about being judged? Despite his inner turmoil, the appointed day arrived. Tone cycled from his tutoring job on Luton Tun Street to the sister's house, arriving a bit earlier than planned. He passed by the gate of the Grand Villa on Nguyen Du Street several times, hesitant to go in. The house was impressive, a sprawling villa near the heart of Saigon. A 2-meter-high wall, painted in earthy yellow, surrounded the property, adding to its air of grandeur and seclusion. Facing Nguyen Du Street was a large iron gate with 2 dark brown doors, topped with rows of sharp iron spikes that reinforced its imposing presence. To the left of the main gate was a smaller pedestrian entrance, also painted brown. As the appointed time approached, Tone finally mustered the courage to stop at the gate. He checked the house number to be sure and then rang the bell. Standing there nervously, he heard the sound of footsteps crunching on gravel, followed by the click of the smaller gate being unlocked. A girl, perhaps 15 years old, peeked out and smiled at him. "Are you Tone?" she asked. Tone guessed the sisters must have mentioned him. He quickly replied, "Yes, I am." The girl opened the gate, stepping aside to let him wheel his bicycle in. Then, closing the gate behind him, she gestured to the yard and said, "Please go straight into the living room. The mistress is probably waiting for you. You can leave your bike here. I'll park it against the wall, and you can retrieve it when you leave." She pointed to a spot inside the yard as she spoke. Tone turned to her, bowing slightly out of politeness. "Thank you," he said, handing over his bicycle. The girl smiled again, taking the bike and turning toward the wall as Tone walked toward the villa's front door, his nerves still on edge. Tone walked along a small gravel path, leading to the front of the main house. To the left of the path stretched a large square yard, about 10 meters wide, filled with various ornamental plants and flowering shrubs. A rockery stood near the outer wall, and several narrow, winding pathways paved with stone or gravel meandered through rows of carefully pruned bushes and stone benches. Flower pots lined the edges of the paths, their vibrant blooms meticulously maintained. On the right of the main path lay a broader stone-paved driveway that curved around the house, likely leading to the back for cars. A large German shepherd, tied to an iron post near the steps, wagged its tail as Tone approached but didn't bark. The dog's calm demeanor reassured him. Tone had tutored in many relatively affluent households, but none had felt as imposing or as cold as this one. The house itself was square, with pale yellow walls and a pyramidal roof reminiscent of a layered cake, covered in light brown tiles. 3 wide, arched steps made of gray marble veined with white led up to the entrance hall. A 3-meter-wide corridor surrounded by low marble columns and balustrades framed the front house, adding an air of grandeur. As he hesitantly entered the empty living room, Tone glanced around, surprised to find no one there, not even Ha. The room was spacious and situated in the heart of the house, its decor steeped in a traditional, almost regal style. In the center stood a polished mother-of-pearl inlaid sofa set, its cushions upholstered in dark red brocade. Behind the sofa, toward the interior of the house, stood a pair of elaborately carved, dark wooden stands holding 2 elephant tusks about 1.5 meters long. Beyond them was a grand altar made of dark wood, inlaid with mother of pearl. The altar bore a set of bronze incense burners adorned with bamboo and bird motifs, their polished surfaces gleaming, alongside vases and fruit platters on ornate wooden stands. To the left of the room was a low cabinet filled with cups and bowls, topped with a weapon rack displaying an array of ancient weapons, bronze spears, machetes, and swords. In front of the rack stood a bronze statue of Guan Yu, depicted riding a horse, holding the azure dragon saber in one hand while stroking his long beard with the other. On the opposite side of the room were two black mahogany chairs, flanking a small antique bookcase. The walls bore two ink paintings, one on the right featuring two galloping horses, and the other on the left showing a mist-shrouded mountain range. Both paintings were adorned with Chinese calligraphy. The living room was grand but cozy, the polished teak furniture gleaming under the soft light of a chandelier. Tone's gaze lingered on the embroidered cushions, luxuries far removed from the bare mattress in his attic room, where the walls seemed to shrink with every passing day. A chill ran down Tone's spine as he stepped further into the living room. He felt strangely out of place, overwhelmed by the opulence and formality. Just as he stood there, unsure what to do, a familiar voice called out behind him, "Mr. Tone, you just got here?" Tone turned and saw her beaming at him. At that moment, her cheerful presence felt like a lifeline. Relieved, he quickly responded, "Yes, I just arrived. Are your parents home?" He wanted to ask about Swang, but didn't dare. Ha grabbed his hand and led him to the sofa, saying, "My mom's in the back. Come sit down for a bit." Tone followed her lead, hesitating slightly as he sat on the gleaming sofa. Ha settled into the chair at the head of the table and asked, "Did you have trouble finding the house?" "It wasn't too hard," Tone replied. "I teach nearby on Luton Ton Street. After my class, I just rode straight here." He was starting to acclimate to the chilly atmosphere of the house and spoke with more ease. Just then, the young girl who had opened the gate for him appeared, carrying a tray with 2 glasses of orange juice. She placed it on the table, bowed politely, and left without a word. As soon as she was gone, Ha leaned forward with a playful scold. "You said you'd be done teaching at 5, so why are you only getting here now? It's almost too late." She emphasized the last words with mock seriousness, her innocent tone making Tone smile. He chuckled and mimicked her. "Yeah, almost too late, but I had to ride my bike, and sometimes my students take longer to finish their homework. I had to allow for some extra time." Ha giggled, clearly enjoying the light banter. Okay, whatever you say. Just drink some juice to relax. My mom will come out soon. She's busy telling the maids to prepare dinner. You're eating with us tonight." Tone froze at her words. He hadn't expected this at all. He had never met their parents, and he rarely spoke to Swang, so the thought of sitting down for a family dinner filled him with unease. He was a man of few words, and while he could converse easily with Ha, whom he saw as a little sister, he wasn't sure how to behave around her family. He stammered, "Is it really okay for me to stay for dinner like this?" Ha waved off his concern with a smile. "What's there to worry about? You've known us for a while now." Her tone was so sweet and earnest that Tone found it impossible to refuse. Resigned to his fate, he thought to himself, "Well, there's no backing out now. I'll just go with the flow and hope for the best." Noticing his hesitation, Ha quickly added, "You really have to stay. My mom has already prepared everything. Besides, it's just the 3 of us tonight. My dad's busy and won't be home until late." Tone felt slightly more at ease hearing this. He asked, almost absent-mindedly, "Your dad isn't home this weekend?" Ha smiled and replied, "No. He's really busy with work, weekends or weekdays. It's all the same to him." Tone was about to ask what her father did for a living, but caught himself just in time. He realized it might be inappropriate to pry into their personal lives. Instead, he changed the subject, saying, "I wish you'd told me earlier that I'd be staying for dinner. I could have prepared better." "Prepared what?" Ha asked, tilting her head curiously. "Besides, I only found out a little while ago. My mom said it's already dinner time and you just finished teaching, so she invited you to eat with us. It's more fun that way, right? Her explanation left Tone with no further objections. He could only smile faintly and nod. Actually, Tone had stopped by a noodle stand on Luton Tun Street to eat a bowl of noodles before heading to Ha's house. He was worried he might get hungry if the visit stretched on too long, so he prepared himself in advance. He smiled at Ha and said, "All right, I won't refuse, but you'll have to share some of your rice with me." "I eat a lot," he joked. Seeing that the atmosphere had relaxed, Ha teased back. "You're worried about how much you can eat? My mom cooked plenty of rice. Finish it all, or you won't be able to leave the house." Just then, a woman who appeared to be in her early 40s walked out from inside the house. Guessing that she was Swang and Ha's mother, Tone quickly stood up and clasped his hands in greeting. "Hello, ma'am." Ha also stood and said, "Mom, this is Tone," before turning to him and introducing, "And this is my mother." One glance at her, and Tone immediately knew she was Swang's mother. Swang had clearly inherited both her appearance and demeanor from this woman. Though no longer young, she had a slim figure, her jet-black hair tied up elegantly. Her facial features were delicate, a small, proportionate nose, lips painted a slightly deeper shade than Swang's, and a graceful posture. In short, Swang looked like a younger version of her mother. She smiled warmly and said, "Hello, please have a seat." The refined Hanoi accent in her voice startled Tone. For the past 3 months, he'd assumed Swang and Ha were from the South. Both sisters spoke with a distinct Southern accent, but now he realized their family was entirely Northern. Oh no, what should I do? Tone thought, his mind racing. How was a simple country boy like him supposed to behave in such an elegant and cultured Hanoi household? He'd heard so much from friends about the traditions and formality of Northern families, particularly those from Hanoi. He'd even read about it in novels by famous writers like the Two Luke Literary Group. The more he thought about it, the more awkward he felt. How could he handle the situation? How could he retreat gracefully? Seeing his anxious expression, Ha laughed and teased, "Mr. Tone, why do you look so surprised? Are you amazed at how much my mom and sister Swang look alike? Or did you notice her Hanoi accent?" This girl is way too sharp, Tone thought. Gathering himself, he quickly sat back down, smiled at Ha, and nodded. Ha grinned, still teasing. "Don't you think my mom and Swang are identical? In this house, she's my mom's daughter, and I'm my dad's." Ha's mother smiled indulgently at her younger daughter's antics and lightly scolded. "You're always saying you're not my child. Fine, then. If you need anything, go ask your father." Turning back to Tone, she said, "This girl talks about you all the time, so today I decided to invite you over." Ha picked up the conversation. "I bet you're surprised we speak with a Southern accent while my mom uses a Northern one, right?" Tone was unsure how to respond and kept quiet. Ha continued, "It's not that strange. Our family moved to the South when we were very young. We lived in a neighborhood surrounded by Southerners. All my friends were from the South, and even my nanny was Southern, so my sister and I naturally started speaking the Southern dialect. I bet you couldn't tell we're originally from Hanoi, could you?" Her mother gently interrupted. "All right, Ha! Enough chatter. Go invite Tone to dinner." She stood and left the living room to tend to something in the kitchen. Ha pulled a funny face behind her mother's back, sticking out her tongue, then turned to Tone and switched to a playful Northern accent. "Come on, Mr. Tone, let's go eat." Tone couldn't help smiling. "You must be quite mischievous at home, aren't you?" he asked. Ha laughed. "A little bit. It keeps things fun. If I were as serious as my mom and Swang, life here would be so boring." The dining room was at the back of the house, connected to the main building by a covered walkway about 6 meters long. On either side of the walkway were small courtyards paved with square bricks, featuring flower pots, rock gardens, fish ponds, and glass tanks with goldfish. When they reached the dining room, Swang was already there, standing by the door. She greeted Tone with her usual polite smile and a slight nod. From inside, Ha's mother called out, "Please come in." Ha grinned at Tone and gave him a gentle push on the shoulder. As soon as he stepped inside, Tone was overwhelmed by the sight of the dining table. It was laden with an array of dishes. A chandelier hung low from the ceiling, casting warm light across the room. The dining room itself was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls were covered in a large mural depicting a herd of elephants in a sparse forest, probably a scene from Buon Mithwak. Sitting in the room felt like being in the middle of a lush, green wilderness surrounded by elephants. There were no other decorations. Seeing Tone's amazement, Ha piped up, "It feels like you're in the jungle, doesn't it? My dad loves hunting and had this room decorated to remind him of his adventures. He says it makes every meal feel like a wild forest picnic. I'd love to go hunting with him, but he rarely lets me join. He says I'm too reckless, and Swang's too scared of mosquitoes." Ha's mother smiled indulgently. "Ha! Invite Tone to sit down first before chatting away." Ha quickly pointed out a chair for Tone and sat next to him, while Swang and her mother sat across the table. Remembering what a friend had once told him about the traditions of northern families, Tone nervously said, in his best attempt at a northern accent, "Yes, please, let's eat." Ha burst out laughing. "Oh, Tone, our family is technically northern, but we gave up those formalities a long time ago. My dad says we should embrace Saigon's casual customs to fit in better here." Tone flushed, feeling both embarrassed and relieved. He couldn't help smiling as he looked at Ha, realizing how attached she seemed to her father. He grew curious and turned to Ha's mother, asking, "Ma'am, is your husband not joining us tonight?" "Oh, he's so busy with work that he rarely eats on time. Please, don't wait for him. Help yourself," she said, her tone warm but practical. Tone noticed how naturally she had shifted to addressing him less formally. It was a small but reassuring gesture that made him feel more at ease. Seeing Swang still sitting quietly and eating, Tone looked at her and asked, "What about you, Ms. Swang? Have you decided what you'll major in when you start college next year?" Swang hesitated, her tone uncertain. "I'm not sure yet. I'd like to study literature, but my family thinks I should study pharmacy. I don't know whose advice I should follow." Swang traced the edge of her cup of water with her finger, her gaze distant. "I've always loved reading and writing," she said softly, almost to herself. "But dreams are hard to follow when they're not shared by your family." Ha immediately interjected, "If I were as good a student as Ms. Swang, I'd study law and become a lawyer to scare people." Her mother chuckled. "You could definitely do that. Ha! With how sharp your tongue is, you'd be perfect as a lawyer. That way, you could argue as much as you like." Then, turning to Ha, she added, "Ha, pour some wine for Tone to drink." "No, thank you. I don't drink alcohol," Tone replied politely. "Oh, it's all right," Ha's mother reassured him. "This wine isn't very strong. You're an adult. You can have a little drink for fun, as long as you don't overdo it." Feeling cornered, Tone nodded awkwardly. "Yes, thank you." Ha leaned forward, as though imitating the adult she admired. Her voice carried the same authority, but it lacked the weight of experience. Her words light as paper. Quickly poured a glass of wine for Tone, then filled one for herself. Grinning, she said, "I'll drink too. I'll toast with you." Tone frowned at her, disapprovingly. "You're still young. You shouldn't be drinking alcohol." Ha laughed and argued. "It's just a little. I drink with my dad all the time. It's no big deal." Her mother smiled, amused. "You see, Tone, this girl is clearly meant to be a lawyer. She loves arguing. She really is her father's daughter. Only the two of them are perfectly suited for each other." The meal passed with Tone feeling awkward, Ha chattering brightly, and Swang and her mother maintaining their characteristic solemnity. After dinner, everyone moved back to the living room for tea. The maid brought out a tray with a teapot and a plate of cakes, placing it on the table before retreating. Tone felt out of place amidst the family's hospitality and formality, silently following their lead like a nervous guest. Sensing the quiet atmosphere, Ha's mother gently asked, "Tone, do you live with your family here in Saigon, or are you on your own?" "Yes, ma'am, I live with a friend. My family is in Kairang." "I came here alone for school," he replied, bracing himself for what he assumed would be more probing questions. "And what are you studying? What year are you in?" she asked, her curiosity genuine but kind. "I'm studying chemistry and will graduate next year." "Do you have any plans after graduation?" "Yes, ma'am. I haven't decided yet, but I think I'll find a job to help support my family." Tone could tell the inevitable question about his background was coming. He decided it was better to be honest. After all, he knew there was little chance of anything significant developing between him and Swang. How could someone like him fit into a family like this? "What does your family do in Kairang that they're able to send you to Saigon for school?" "Yes, ma'am. I only have my mother. My father passed away, and my family works as farmers. I came to Saigon and have been taking care of everything on my own," Tone answered, his tone even but sincere. Ha's mother looked genuinely surprised. "That's incredible. Saigon is such a difficult place to live in, and yet you manage to support yourself and continue your education. How do you balance it all?" Tone felt a twinge of sadness, but also pride as he replied, "I tutor children in math, physics, and chemistry. The income from that helps cover my rent, food, and school expenses. I've also learned to organize my schedule well to balance my teaching and studies at the university." Swang and Ha sat there with wide-eyed curiosity, listening to their mother and Tone talk. They had never realized how hard some people had to work just to afford an education. Pampered since birth, they saw schooling as a natural part of life, a routine to follow simply because they were too young to work, with their parent handling everything else. As if satisfied with what she had learned about Tone, their mother stood up. "All right, you all sit and chat. I need to go inside," she said, turning away. Tone also stood to see her off. He hesitated, unsure how to excuse himself. When I spoke up, her tone commanding. "Tone, sit down. Tomorrow's Sunday, you don't have school, right?" Caught off guard, Tone sat back down. Looking at Swang, he smiled and said, "Miss Swang, you and your mother like two peas in a pod. If I didn't know better and met you on the street, I'd have mistaken you for sisters." Ha chimed in, "I told you this afternoon my mother and Swang were cast from the same mold." Swang, seeming thoughtful, asked, "You mentioned earlier that you live alone in Saigon and have to work while studying. But how do you manage? I mean, isn't it lonely being on your own? What happens if you don't make enough to live or eat?" Tone smiled faintly, glancing at both girls. He understood they came from a life of privilege and excess, making it hard for them to grasp the struggles of the less fortunate. How could he explain that survival often required adjusting one's expectations, foregoing luxuries, and making do with less? When Tone remained silent, Han nudged him impatiently. "Well, I want to know the answer too. Why aren't you saying anything?" Tone looked at them both and said slowly, "It's not that I'm avoiding question. I'm just wondering how to make you two understand." After a brief pause, he added, "Lonely, maybe, but you get used to it. Survival has its own rewards. You probably learned mostly French proverbs at school, so you might not know the Vietnamese saying, 'Eat according to the season, live according to the times.' It means that depending on your circumstances, you adjust and live moderately." And then Tone continued. "For example, I have to rent the cheapest place I can find, eat at cheap meal shops, avoid luxuries like coffee, tea, or movies, and save as much as possible for tough times. Does that make sense?" Swang nodded thoughtfully, but Ha's expression remained puzzled. "What's a cheap meal shop, Tone?" she asked in a childlike tone. Tone smiled, explaining. Cheap meal shops were a lifeline for students and laborers, offering a glimpse of stability. I had seen all walks of life gather there, men with calloused hands, women clutching their children, and students like myself, hungry for more than just food. They're rice shops funded by the government to serve low-income people. The meals are very affordable and include 3 dishes, a main dish, a stir-fried dish, and soup. You can eat as much rice as you want." "Oh, I've never heard of that before. When you have a chance, you must take me there to try it," Ha exclaimed. Tone chuckled, looking at her. "All right, if you really want to try, I'll take you. But I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it." "Why not? If you can eat it, so can I." Ha insisted, her tone defiant. After a while, Swang excused herself to rest, leaving Tone alone with Ha in the spacious, chilly living room. He felt awkward. The girl he had admired, Swang, now seemed distant, while everyone in the family treated him as if he were Ha's friend. Ha, bold and spirited, was just 16, a rebellious and impulsive teenager. Tone sat silently as I chattered on, responding to her out of politeness, but barely paying attention to his words. When the clock neared 9, he stood up to leave. It's late, and I have a long ride home. I don't want to risk the curfew. Ha pouted. Tomorrow's a day off. Why are you leaving so early? It's a long way back, and I can't risk being caught by the police. Ha waved dismissively. Don't worry. If you get arrested, I'll ask my dad to come get you. Curious, Tone asked, why do you mention your father so often? He must love you the most in the family, right? Ha beamed proudly. Of course. Dad says I'm his beloved daughter. I look just like him, not like my mother at all, so he loves me the most. Hearing this, Tone grew even more curious about Ha's father. What kind of man was he? How had he built such a fortune? But it felt impolite to ask, so he let the thoughts linger unspoken. That night, lying in his narrow attic, Tone reflected on the day's events. He felt lost. Swang, the girl he had dreamed of, seemed more like a distant work of art, something to admire but never touch. And Ha, she was beautiful, but she was still a child, spoiled by a life of luxury. What could he offer someone like her? He was a struggling student from a rural family, unsure where his next meal would come from. Ha, with her fiery spirit and impulsive nature, might seem enamored now, but one day reality would shatter her illusions. As sleep crept in, Tone resolved to keep his distance. But even as he made a decision, he couldn't shake the image of Ha's defiant smile or the echo of her words. If you can eat it, so can I. Tone sighed, his thoughts tangled as he drifted into an uneasy sleep.